6:30. Welcome to the June 3rd, 2026 Mendon Select Board meeting. Meeting is being recorded and all 5 members of the board are present. Y'all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda, do we have any citizen statements or petitions in the audience or online? All right, seeing none, let's move on to community events and announcements. Progressive town-wide yard sale on June 6th.
Yeah, Kat's here to talk about it.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So as you all know, every year we do a progressive wide yard sale here in Mendon, and it is this Saturday, June 6th, starts at 7:30 a.m. You can pick up your map right at the senior center. I actually have a table this year over there, something new they're doing, so I'd love to see everybody come on down, say hi. They're also doing what's called a bingo, yard sale bingo. So different yard sales will have stamps. Ask when you go if they have a stamp, and there's prizes to be won for the person who gets the most. So.
Much. All right, item 4, let's move on to appointments. The first one is the Insurance Advisory Committee retiree appointee, proposed to be Claudia Cataldo, term to expire June 30th, 2029. Claudia, do you want to come up?
I'll set the stage a little bit. We talked about this at last meeting, but we've got a insurance advisory committee with one active member from each of the unions, one non-union member. HR coordinator, Jen O'Neill, and myself are ex officio on the committee. And any changes, proposed changes, anything with insurance will run through this committee entirely. And then we need one retiree. So we sent out a call to a few folks, had a few interested. Claudia came and met with the committee last week and was recommended by the insurance advisory committee.
Welcome back. For you that don't know, Claudia was a longtime town accountant. She's missed it, now she's back. So I would be looking for an appointment. Appoint Claudia Cataldo as a retiree representative to the Insurance Advisory Committee with a term to expire June 30th, 2029.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you very much.
Say hi to Vinny. Next, Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission delegate and alternate appointment. And I was the appointee of the alternate delegate, and I'm willing to do that again. So I guess I would be looking for an appointment motion to appoint Mike Morale as a CMRPC alternate delegate for the fiscal year of 2027.
Just for context for folks, the planning board appoints the primary delegate, and the select board appoints from their membership a alternate delegate.
I move Mike Crowley as the CMRPC alternate delegate for the fiscal year of 2027.
Second.
Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Much. Now we move on to the next appointment of the open seat on the Capital Planning Committee. And I'd be looking for an appointment, a motion to appoint Mike Goddard to the Capital Planning Committee with a term to expire on June 30th, 2029.
So moved.
Second.
Would you like to come up and say anything?
Tell us about your qualifications.
Yeah, right.
Well, a little different perspective on this side.
Right.
I'm Mike Goddard, 32 Wood Drive. Just looking to continue and complete the work we started, the last couple of years through the board. Committee's done a lot of great work, and I think ultimately we want to see it as integrated into the multi-year financial planning that Jeremy and team started. So it's sort of part and parcel of the multi-year budget stuff we've done in the last couple of years.
Just to cross T's and dot I's, he comes unanimously recommended from the Capital Planning Committee.
I was wondering, but yes. Okay,
I'm not going to toot my own horn. Sorry.
currently chair of the capital planning?
Is Phil chair?
Phil, okay,
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you for
thank you.
continuing to step up. So the motion been made and seconded. All those in favor? All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Oh, Jason.
The next is a motion to give the town administrator appointment authority for seasonal positions in fiscal 26 and 27. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so this would be covered under implementation of the town administrator bylaw. The seasonal positions fall under my office's appointing authority. The reason I put it here is that we had a seasonal worker who had a physical injury and unable to perform for a large part of the season. And we're interviewing folks now, and we'll likely have a candidate tomorrow or Friday, and rather than wait the 2 weeks to come here, and we don't have the candidate identified, we interviewed 2 folks this week to just do this as a seasonal appointee. It's something that we've discussed as part of the bylaw, and the board has been board and town meeting been comfortable with. So just to the bylaw is under review at the Attorney General's office and anticipated August return for us. So this is just kind of accelerating.
Anybody have any questions? All right. Well, I'd be looking for a motion.
I move to give the town administrator the appointment authority for seasonal positions in fiscal 2026 and 2027.
Second. All right. Motion been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Meeting minutes. We have meeting minutes for April 8th, April 14th, April 15th, April 29th, and May 6th. Has everybody had a chance to look at them? No reason to pass over any of them.
We got some notes back from Brendan on some small, which have been amended. So it would be the minutes as amended for non-substantive spelling.
All right. So I'd be looking for.
There we go.
We're looking for a motion to approve the minutes as presented and amended.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Massachusetts Air Sensor Grant Program.
Now, you want to talk about this one? You want me to?
Yeah, sure. So the way this came about is I was volunteering at the high school science fair about a month ago. And a lot of the programs were done in partnership with Massachusetts Air Quality Monitoring organization, and they had 2 representatives there. So they have an air sensor grant program, and their goal is to create a network of these purple air sensors across the state. They're not actionable, but it highlights trouble areas, and they can come in with the approved monitoring and take action if there's any like air quality issues. So we got to talking, and it's very clear if you pull up the map that Mendon is a big hole in the network. And there is surrounding towns all have them. The high school's done really good science fair projects partnering with this technology. And they mentioned that there was a grant, so I passed it on to Jack, and it looks like it's a go if we're all comfortable with that.
It was one of the easiest applications and one of the quickest turnarounds for a grant. We applied and they said, yes, here are the devices.
Well, how big are these? Or
Do these little guys, you just
they go on poles or
Yeah, you put them in a sheltered location, it's got Wi-Fi and it logs to it.
our Wi-Fi or?
So it's like a town building.
So we provide power and internet and they provide the device and then collect the data.
And the only catch is that you have to keep it up for like.
Do we know how long this network's been in place? Has it been? I'm just curious why where the hole in the middle and it's never.
Does it contribute to like particulate matter measurements and that type of stuff?
Yeah, exactly. It's looking at.
We'll get like better quality, local air quality
Correct.
metrics.
Exactly. So you get the hyper local air quality metrics and fine particulate matter, CO2, things like that. And then if there's a trouble spot, it can come with official EPA monitor.
So like if you put this near a farm, are you gonna be measuring methane output and that kind of stuff?
Essentially. So Jack has a proposed list of
That's really cool.
places to put this.
How many?
Oh, yeah.
They gave you 5.
Oh.
Nice.
Place where we want.
And then we're supposed to keep it for a year and then what happens in a year?
You can just,
Keep them, okay, the grant,
it's like
but
a
the
minute,
grant
you
is,
just want,
I see, but the grant is to give the, so. Do we own the devices? Does the town own them or do they own them?
so I think we'll have to look more into the,
I imagine it's like the weather spotter networks where, you know, they run them until they die, but they contribute to the overall.
I'm curious to know if we have access to the data.
yeah, it's a public portal, so see all the live data.
Can we see the whole permitted if we look?
I'm trying to get.
What's the URL?
It's, if you look up Purple Air.
Purple Air, map.purpleair.com.
So, to whether or not we own them, we are able to transfer ownership. So so like if you wanted to put them somewhere else, you just have to inform them that.
All right.
Didn't seem like there was any catches. It seemed like a pretty good.
All right. I'll be looking for a motion then to accept the grant.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in
This is
favor?
what the purple, did it go?
That beat you.
There. Oh, did you beat me? You did beat me.
So yeah, we have those sensors in Northbridge, Uxbridge, Blackstone, Bellingham, Hopedale, and then us in the middle. So
Okay, all right, yeah, there we are.
Well, motion been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
We have a water project update, which is great. So
this is Dan Scott.
folks in Woodard and Curran want to come up?
Evening.
Good evening. Welcome.
Well,
Town planner Dylan Lindholm is also online.
you, Kevin?
Welcome.
I just didn't see why.
You want to come up, Kevin, and sit with us, or are you sure?
We'll put it on the screen. It might be, it's going to be very similar to what you saw in February. So, yep. Well, thanks for having us tonight. I'm Scott Salavucci, a client manager with Woodard and Curran. With me is Dan Scott, the project manager for Woodard and Curran, and we're excited to kind of come back here. Usually this is about our yearly cadence to come and talk with you about, we're 4 years in and 4 phases down on the water expansion study. You might recall, and Mike was a big part of it in 2002 when this all kicked off, was we looked at water and sewer possibilities. We've since focused on drinking water and had some really good results. So we're here to give you an update, talk through those findings, where we're at, what the next steps are, some of the things that, you know, you guys will all be interested in hearing about, just the schedule and funding and some of those pieces. And again, it's something very similar that we presented to the Water Commission over the winter, but a little bit of progress since then, right? And yeah, looking forward to kind of going through. Again, Dylan is on the call. She's been instrumental as the town planner on this project and one of our key community resources. And Jeremy's been in a lot of our meetings as well. So looking forward to updating you.
All right. So where are we at?
Let's talk about it. Yeah.
All right, so for our presentation tonight, we're going to step through prior phases of work, just give you all a reminder of what we did before this current phases, so phases 1 through 3. And then we'll step into a presentation on the work we've been doing over the last year for phase 4 and get into a little bit more granular detail on each one of the work items. So the prolonged pump test report, our preliminary design, business planning, and then the draft source final report. Those are the core things we have been working on. And then we'll talk through next steps. And then if you guys have any questions, we can have an open discussion. So prior to the work, so phase 1 was in 2022. We did a general study of the water and sewer expansion in the town. The sewer was cost prohibitive. And then on the water side, we worked on figuring out phasing for the water, where there might be viable sources to investigate, and water demands for the town. So like how much water do we need? So those were the main things we looked at there. And then the following phase 2 in 2023, we built upon phase 1 and really started to look around and try to figure out where the water might be. There was 4 locations that were identified in phase 1, 2 of which were public and 2 were on private land. We had determined the best path forward as a group was to investigate the public ones first. There was just less coordination, and the one on Providence Road ended up being a viable location. It had the quality and quantity of water based on a 4-hour pumping test that warranted further investigation. The other location at the town's DPW was not preferable. There was just not great yield from that location. So then phase 3 built upon that 4-hour pumping test we did. And the next step was to do a prolonged pumping test. So this was up to 15 days of pumping, drawing down the water table at our yield of 70 gallons per minute. And that proved very fruitful. We ended up identifying the water source on Providence Road that had both the quality and quantity we were looking for, and it stabilized after about 10 days. And Mass DEP gave us the authority to stop the test. So with that, that brought us into phase 4. One item to remind you all of is that all the funding for the project to date has all been through grants. So ARPA, Community One Stop, Chapter 268 earmark, and the Rural Development Fund grant was what we are currently using for this phase of work. So these are the 5 main components of the work we've been doing over the last year. So the prolonged pumping test report is complete. Our preliminary design is substantially complete. The hydraulic modeling is done. The business planning and the draft source final report are both ongoing and on track to wrap up at the end of this month. So the prolonged pumping test report is a requirement that Mass DEP has for, it actually ends up feeding into the final source report, but it's a requirement to just document what the hydrology of the area is, and then give a detailed analysis of the pump test itself. So just proving that we did the pump test correctly and to provide the results for them to see and give us authority to move forward.
What do you do with 1,000 gallons of water a day or whatever? What do you do with all that?
That's the same thing.
I was
Oh, it gets discharged to the river.
Okay.
During the pump test?
Yeah.
And that is something that's part of the permitting and setup, and they want to understand that. And we did permit that with the Concom as well, so.
And I'm just curious, do you map that flow as well? Like, are you trying to see where the water goes, or does that matter at all?
We didn't, other than make sure the discharge didn't erode out, but we just put it right back into the river.
How deep is the pump test?
Those wells are 40 feet?
Yeah, something in the.
Pretty down.
Yeah, they're not bedrock wells, which was a question that we had to talk through with the abutters of, they have private drinking water wells at their residences, and a lot of those are deep bedrock wells.
And most.
We're in a different, yeah, and so we're in a different aquifer, so we could reassure them that this isn't taken
It'll
from
affect
there.
them.
Yeah.
Because it's a shallow.
Yes.
Was there a comment about it was extraordinarily absent of PFAS, or really clean, right? Wasn't that the?
Yes,
Yeah.
so there was testing that was done of the pumped discharge itself that had good quality and quantity. There was some iron and manganese, which were expected.
Yeah.
The surface water did show some detectable PFAS, but not so on the river itself, but not in the water that was tested from the test itself, from the actual aquifer.
You say it stabilized after 10 days. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, when we did the pumping test, it drew down the water table to like a cone, and then
it's
eventually it stopped drawing down at all. And we were able to, yep. So we weren't like continuously drawing it down.
And how much are we speculating we will draw as a town? So you said that was 70 gallons a minute.
Yep.
So how much does a town our size, how much are we speculating we will draw of that 70 gallons we tested per minute?
It's really going to depend on build out. Like, initially, there's, as I'm sure you know, there's customers that are on the Hopedale system.
Mhm.
So initially, we would get the water to those customers and build out in commercial corridors.
And what changes, so the pumping, like the place where we're pumping the water from, does that change based on the customer base, or it's really like the infrastructure, so like water storage and pressure systems along the way? Like what changes when you scale that up and out? Do the wells change? Does the infrastructure out of the well change, or is it both?
So you would pump to the treatment building, it would get treated and then pumped out
And
to meet
all
the
the
demand.
pressures happening at that building, and it's about their storage capacity and ability to apply, whatever the customers need.
And you have capacity within the water pipes themselves, and then the storage tank too. The storage tank has, level sensors in it that detect how much water.
I'm mainly asking because
It's
I'm
pretty
curious, like,
complex.
when we go forward into the future, like, will residents, as we expand, do residents expect change over in that Providence Road area? Because it's kind of, it's a quiet, off the grid sort of space. And like, once those are tapped and pumping to our treatment facility, that just stays as it is going forward.
Yes.
And that never changes.
Yeah.
We're still in the, trying to decide.
Yeah, we're pretty early. I'm just wondering, like, long term, once the wells go in, does it stay and just look like it looks going?
Yes, it wouldn't, we're not planning to expand.
I think it's important to point out that this started, as you pointed out, commercial water and sewer for the commercial corridor up on 16 and potentially 140. And then when we talked about drinking water, then just to service the existing customers down on the south end of town. But there really is no plans to replace people's artesian wells with
Right.
just potentially for commercial and to see the potential. And I know at one point we identify within this aquifer some a landlocked privately owned piece of property that we wanted to try to acquire to protect the watershed.
I did think that happened as well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You did acquire.
You did? Oh, at town meeting. Yeah, the postage stamp, right, last year.
Yeah.
2 years.
So it did happen.
Yeah.
Just to put it in perspective, you're a decade away from anything
Right.
at this point.
Never too early to hear commentary though.
Well, it's interesting that
And several tens of millions of dollars in that time period.
but also knowing that we're on Hopedale system and they have a water shortage really. The idea of being able to somehow provide water, and there's a long distance there.
They will shut us off if we don't replace that system first.
Yeah.
So that's in our contract with Oakdale.
Yeah, so-
Every year we must supply them with where we've looked in other towns for water with updated meetings. We meet with them once a year. And if we don't show them a good faith effort to replace their system, they can shut us off. If we develop this and send it somewhere before replacing Oakdale, they can turn us off. So.
Does this, Kevin, how does that, do you believe or have you seen that this impacts any of that at all?
The Water Commission has told the engineers we want it to go to 140 before anyone else. Because Hopedale will shut us off if we start going anywhere else in town, they'll shut us off.
Well, no, what my point was, I think initially, didn't we talk about potentially supplying it to Hopedale and have them purify it? Because they.
I actually looked and have brought up at several meetings over the last year and a half. What do we do with this source if we don't develop a amended system? I believe we should be selling it to other towns. Every town is in a shortage right now. Oakdale is in a desperate shortage.
Right.
If we had extra water right now, I would love to put the shoe on the other foot and charge them at our highest rate and gouge them the way they've been gouging us for the last 10 years.
I just don't know how we would get it from Providence Road. I mean, I know I'm sure
There was
there's
a hookup up at the corner.
on
There's a lot of
140,
towns
but
laying
but that's really on the outflow side. So how do you get that?
All over to treatment up on.
It's gotta get treated and then it's gotta go out. So
Depends
that's
on where you build a treatment plant.
right.
Will this final report say how long this aquifer will last at that draw rate? Do we know that information? Like, when you put wells in, do you just expect them to last forever, or how long does a well go?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, yeah.
Well,
Yep.
First you need a state permit to take that.
Yep. And that is a big piece
And
of the
they tell you
work.
How much?
Okay. So that ultimately those decisions, based on whatever your scientific reporting is, the state will decide.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you'll find that a lot of communities do have multiple well sources depending on what their infrastructure needs are and the demand is. And they're constantly testing the water, and sometimes communities will shut it off because one has high PFAS before they can treat it, right? Or there might be low aquifers from drought conditions, but for the most part, all the things that we're calculating, we're looking through, and DEP is holding us accountable to permit for. They're looking at the numbers to make sure that, yeah, that even in drought conditions, the drawdown there's a certain yield that is allowable. And I don't have that number in front of me exactly, but there's a number that we have kind of formulated of what do you think we might need, the town might need for build out and economic development and servicing public buildings and potentially future residents, but that's not really in the works or the views right now. But how much will there be for a need, and what kind of yield and supply is there? And there's more than what we think you would need.
My God, did you have a comment?
I had a lot of good discussion. I just want to make sure I was following along, but the good news is it safe to say Mendon has a viable water source for this program?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, let's celebrate that a little bit.
100%.
I mean, I remember, right, we saw an in-depth report on the chemicals, other than who in Mendon doesn't have iron and manganese in the well. Other than that, the water was very pristine.
Mhm.
Surprisingly, I mean, we were shocked there were no PFAS.
Right. Good news.
That was great news.
Yeah, and we're reaching certain milestones, right, that we've discussed with the Water Commission of, identifying this as a viable well source and getting it permitted through DEP. So there's checkpoints that even if there are delays for whatever reason in any next phases, you'll have reached certain checkpoints as a community that says, this is a source, this has been permitted, this is, proven. And so if for any reason things stall, you've reached milestones that you can always pick back up at. So those are huge gains for the community and things that the Water Commission has been seeking for, really decades, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, we're just what these grants, and I want to thank Mike for leading the charge on that. Mike
Mhm.
Raleigh led the charge, last governor as chairman, but the grants and these guys, we had been trying as three, part-time elected commissioners to do for years what they did with this grant money. I mean, we were going around, taking days off from work, going around other towns, looking at other water sources. And we're miles, ahead of where we were.
I just find it interesting that 20 years ago, when there was a potential power plant that was going to be built further down Providence Road, they did a similar test and found that it just wasn't viable, it wasn't adequate. And they were just like, we're on the other side of this aquifer, and suddenly
Different
you
location.
got all this good news. Yeah, I know, it's just,
Yeah. I don't understand that part as a civil engineer, when we have geologists on our team and they can say, all right, we think you should go to this area, and it works.
Right.
Don't know how they do it. I don't.
When you see how many other wells are on the other side of the river, on the Mill River, that they've investigated 50 years ago and they weren't fruitful.
Yeah.
It's like they're
that's
Hundreds of feet.
that's what it's a mystery.
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Don't forget, in the mid-70s to mid-80s, the Milford Water Company spent a fortune in the same area as we're in, and concluded they didn't have a viable water source.
Well,
I can't tell you how many millions they spent in that time
you
period,
do now.
because they're running out of water, and that's at the time they were still pumping to us through Oakdale. And they abandoned that, saying it's not feasible to develop. And we're in a quarter mile of their site.
And so some of the things that
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
some of the things that we started this discussion around were, is there enough yield, connect to existing services through Hopedale? Is there enough to provide for economic development, 140, 16, municipal buildings such as these, the schools? One of the first phase, during the first phase of 2022, we went and talked to neighboring communities about, would you want to set up an intermunicipal agreement, a connection, provide water to Mendon? And a lot of those communities, it was during a drought, but a lot of those communities said, we don't have enough water for ourselves, really. How can we possibly sign on to support you as well? That is very valuable information that if any of them did want to set up, an interconnection, Mendon does now have a source, and Mendon can now
There's a couple ways we
be
can
providing
approach
both ways.
that. It can be an intermunicipal agreement. It could be a purchase and sale sort of thing, or it can be an independent water district, right? We can go, is that a viable option as well?
We are connected to Hopedale with 2 meters at 2 locations. One in front of the Quick Mart gas station or whatever, Mutual Mart gas station at the other traffic light at 140 and South Main and Cape. And the other meter we have is on Pleasant Road in Blue.
Are we talking about a lot of revenue? Or like,
Well, let me put it this way. Milford, for the first time earlier this calendar year, Milford opened up the interconnect with Bellingham, Milford's running short. So they have an emergency interconnect with Bellingham. Well, everybody has one with every town. But they opened that up. Do you have any idea what we're paying Hopedale for that water? We have the highest water rate of anybody in the state because Hopedale charges us the highest commercial rate
I was gonna say, I know when I look at my bill,
for our water.
because I'm on that, just like him, we're on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm paying, if I take out the fee that we locally imposed 3 years ago for capital, I'm paying about $220 a quarter for 2 people.
okay,
And that all goes to Hopedale. $50 of that is to pay our share of the Hopedale Water Sewer Treatment Plant. So, all right, so I'm somewhere around
thousands of dollars.
I'm 180 every 3 months, all going to Hopedale, when if we had our own system, that would be more like 60. I mean, they charge us their highest commercial rate, they charge us their highest hydrant rate. They do not like the fact, and they make no bones about telling us, they want us off their system as soon as possible. They graciously are letting one new business on at a cost of $5,000 for a fire hookup only.
I mean, I just think it's an interesting way to look at the capital payout and then maybe a shorter payback, right? If we're able to generate revenue off the system and the town doesn't have to draw as much on, town funds, like that's a big sell.
And the best part of all of it is by talking to state and federal officials, we're able to get these grants and get this investigative done without any cost to the taxpayers locally.
Well, we interrupted you. I started this by interrupting your presentation. So if you'd like to continue.
No, there's a lot of good questions and points that we are going to make throughout this is, we've cleared a lot of good hurdles here, and finding a viable source was a huge effort and a huge win. And there's more hurdles to clear with the things you're talking about, funding and revenue and business model.
Voted at town meeting, I don't want to vote the zoning.
Right, the water section.
I remember that vote. I didn't realize that we did actually follow through the purchase of that acquisition of that piece of property that's all landlocked.
There's another piece we're still negotiating that's adjacent and
Okay.
And the problem, the gentleman,
Don't negotiate against ourselves in public.
I'm just gonna say, Mike, you know the gentleman personally, if I told you his last name, which I'm not gonna do here. It's an issue that can be resolved over time. That's the one last piece.
Great.
It's differing opinions on value.
Yeah.
I want to just see if our planner, Dylan, wants to chime in on this at all.
If there's anything you need me to answer, but I know my my great team from Woodard and Curran have great things to say, so I trust them to keep going. Thank you.
Yeah, we have a few more slides to kind of update you on, and again, stop us as we go if you'd like. So
Yeah, don't hold back, Jason. These are my favorite types of meetings, is when it's interactive and I'm not just running these slides and I'm getting feedback as we go through.
And you have to reshare because I stole your sharing.
oh.
Yeah, overall, it's been an amazing project so far. Everything's gone very well, and even the relationships have been great between developers we've talked to, stakeholders like Mass DEP. They've been great teaming partners, just trying to move this forward. And water commissioners and select board, we really appreciate your support on this. So, preliminary design.
Skip that.
This was a key element of this phase of work. It was pretty comprehensive of the initiative overall, looking at preliminary layouts and design of the well site in the treatment building, starting the design of that, looking at the phasing of water distribution throughout the system and revisiting that from phase one. And then actually looking at sizing of the pipes and the storage, which was coupled with the hydraulic modeling we did. In the report, we're going to talk through that whole hydraulic model process we did, and also provide a summary of capital costs. We revisited now that we've moved a little further along the capital costs. They have come down from our initial pass we did a couple of years ago. And we've sharpened our pencils there. And the biggest thing was looking at O&M costs too. And that's a big piece of it. If you're talking about like $500,000 a year in O&M costs, that's a big cost. So like really trying to sharpen our pencils and figuring out what is it going to take to operate a system.
And O&M.
Operations and maintenance. Yeah.
That includes people or that, okay.
Yeah. So maintaining your system, both with, material costs, labor costs, just what does it cost to keep this system operating and bringing water to customers? Then,
I could just, obviously the current 150 customers can't support that. Right. So it has to get more people.
Right. Yeah. Oh, we're also in the report talking about permitting, both state, federal, and local. And then there's some supporting drawings for the well site and the treatment building. So here's a figure that just shows our preliminary phasing that we're actively working on with the town and you all to make sure we're strategizing this and phasing it in a way that's going to, from both a business and socially and economically, bring water to the right customers at the right time. So the first phase involves first constructing the well site, which is down here along the Mill River on Providence Road, and bringing up Providence Road up through here to the commercial corridor here. And then the next phase would be to bring it down to the existing customers over here on the Bellingham line.
We have talked coordination on culvert installation and what that means for a water main down Providence.
And where are we considering putting the treatment facility?
Currently, we're looking at the site because it's the most logical location. There are some challenges just based on the site constraints with the slopes and requirements for compensatory storage. There's just it makes it very complex, but it makes a lot of sense to put it there if it's viable economically.
Otherwise, we have to find some other town land along the way.
Correct, but this is, sorry. I'll show the figure on the next slide, but all along Providence Street here, this is mainly this is a transmission main. So like there's not really a loss of efficiency by siting it somewhere, like say at the DPW or somewhere else along the town-owned property somewhere else in the town, as long as it kind of fits within the phasing here, and you're not talking about a water distribution pipe, you're talking about transmission pipe. it doesn't really change much. But that will be something as we go into as the town pursues further work on this project, that'll be something that'll need to be looked at a little bit more in depth. So here's a schematic of the well site. This has been progressed further, but for the purpose of this meeting, this is the best figure for you to actually be able to really see what's going on here. The design plans are a little hard to read at scale on a slide like this. So there's a access road that extends from Providence Road down to the town's land here. And then it goes around the corner here, and there's an iron and manganese treatment facility here. There's some settling tanks here and caustic sodium hypo treatment next to the iron and manganese treatment. And then down here is where the 3 wells are going to be for this site. And then there's a sediment forebay and a stormwater detention pond shown here.
Does this generate waste or?
That's just for stormwater
No,
treatment.
I'm just like the facility as a whole. Does the treatment generate waste? We have to, export waste out of these facilities, or are you drawing, like the filtration here, the chemical filtration and I assume there's some sort of physical membrane filtration, like those are all replaceable materials, but like does the site itself generate waste that has to be treated like separately than other systems?
There's a septic tank, so a tight tank septic system, so that would have to be pumped.
Yeah, and I think sometimes in drinking water treatment plants, you see like settling lagoons, right? From things that have been filtered out of the water.
Yeah.
A lot of times that's with surface water. And so you're taking out.
If we're bringing rainwater or whatever through the facility.
Well, you're going to be pulling water from the groundwater through wells. So that's kind of filtered through the natural soils. And when you pull that up, you won't have the level of organics and materials that you're filtering out and, kind of coagulating, sending to a settling lagoon that you might see with surface drinking water treatment plants. So this, as a groundwater treatment plant, you're not going to see that type of
sight,
level.
sound, smell, like what are like major things that we're going to have come out of? I've never sat next to a water treatment facility. I don't know if they make noise. I don't know if they make smells.
Pumping station makes noise. I would ask maybe Jeremy could set up a tour for you with now that the town of Milford bought the private Milford Water Company. Their treatment plant on Dulles Street is less than 10 years old. It's state of the art. They are drawing surface water, so they're drawing
That big reservoir.
Lake in Hopkinton and right out of the Charles River, which is where the Charles begins. So they have settling tanks. They have in the treatment plant, they're skidding.
It's mainly like, is it going to have an impact on the community around it? Like, that's really my main question. Like, and if it doesn't, then.
Yeah, and right. So it's a great point because we've talked at length with some of the abutters and had several meetings with them. Coming from page left to right into the turn, you can kind of see that's a property line.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an easement that this access road comes through. It's a little bit of, it seems like just a driveway right now, but it's actually an access easement that the town has rights to. And we continued that into the town-owned property that's landlocked and did all this work. So there's several abutters there that have had certain questions, right? Like what you would imagine, right? Okay, this is my backyard, right? So we've had talked about exactly those things, like what kind of sound will be there, even during the pump tests that were just 2 weeks long. What kind of sound attenuation can you have around the generators? What's the level of traffic? And when this thing is up and running, there'll certainly be a lot of work during construction for a short period. When this is up and running, if the treatment plant is back there, it'd probably be, we estimated maybe a truck once a day, if that, just to check on things. But with this being groundwater and pretty good quality, it's kind of automated systems that put in the chemicals that you need for.
Maybe like berms around the facility, like to absorb noise, that kind of thing, or. It's not, doesn't make enough noise for it to matter.
I don't think so. I think within the building, you'd have sound attenuation for the mechanics that you need.
Everything's gonna be inside. So.
Yeah.
Yep. And again, I mean, but just to like the point of earthen berms or the site itself, like there is limited upland at this site. We're very close to the river, we're very close to wetlands and resource areas. Yeah, so it makes it challenging. If you want to do a little bit of fill in certain places to level it out, you need to make compensatory storage, which means you need to cut somewhere else so the floodplain is balanced. And so that's a challenge. And so it is something that at this stage, we've schematically seen what can fit. And in future stages, is this the best alternative, or would it be better to maybe site it at the highway department?
The good thing is
Backpedal when you do that. So like that neighborhood, the colonial neighborhood, if you wanted to feed water there and there was, a filtration station there, you could just come out with clean water as opposed to back tracing, right?
Yes. Yeah, along Providence Street.
Their water is some of the best water in town.
Is it?
They're directly,
So nobody wants.
Colonial Drive is directly off the mill.
Okay.
That water is ice cold, it is delicious, it is clean. All those people, they have some of the best water in town.
Fair enough.
Because it was built on a sand pit. It's all filtered.
I just wanted to mention that I am very interested in finding an alternative location if possible. And we've mentioned highway, but other town properties in the area, we're definitely investigating.
Off of Cemetery Street. There's a big field there
It's true.
that you own.
Yeah, I'm looking at a whole bunch right now.
Solar power
looking.
bank.
I mean, you can see that
There's a big cemetery off of there called Cook Cemetery that we took for back taxes over 150
Yeah.
years ago. And actually it's, it ultimately leads out onto Thayer Road, which is the end of Bate Street, up near the Bellingham line, but
Jason, that's
Not
all
that-
Barney property. So,
I mean, it might be tough to tell, but this isn't like that large of a footprint. You don't need that much room to make this fit. So
yeah, so like scale, this is a 200 square foot building here, and this one's
large.
probably like a little bit,
Right.
40 by 25.
I'd like to have a shed.
Bunch of sheds.
I know you do.
Beats Ferry down.
If you guys ever want to go on a tour, I can show you the manganese plant. The Milford system is right off the Depot Street in Milford. It looks like a very large metal shed. You don't even know it's a treatment plant. You can't hear it. It's literally a metal corrugated building. The people living in the neighborhood, they don't even hear it.
I think as we get closer to design, some field trips would be fun.
yeah, there's a lot that you can do architecturally to make it fit the neighboring, area.
So we have a lot of town-owned land.
Yeah.
So let's continue.
Yeah.
We have an awful lot of land here in the senior center on the highway.
Right.
Just sitting there.
Another item we've been working on is business planning. So there's a water supply business plan requirement that's part of the final source report. That's going to be a critical element of this, just making sure we're checking the financials and making sure they're viable, and then also making sure that the town has the capacity to run a water enterprise. So those are the two main points of it. It's really making sure you're going to be have a company that's going to be, enough customers and everything, but also the personnel behind it that are going to be the drive the business. So with that, we're also working with the town to figure out, potential customers. So we set up a GIS mapping system and looking at parcels and trying to really look through where connections might be and potential developments or whatnot in areas of town where that might happen. And then working with the town, now that we have these updated capital costs, sitting out with the town and looking at different scenarios and figuring out how much grant money we might need to make this a reality, or if there is enough customers and just what scenario actually makes this make sense and work towards that. So there's going to be a lot of collaboration required. We're not just working in a silo. This is a really big collaborative project with a lot of people involved. Then we also have the draft source final report. So this is a living, breathing document that we are starting to compile, and we're going to continue to work on all the way through getting an approved water source. So it's not a document that you just start and finish quickly. It does take some time to work through, and there's going to be some parts that quickly are substantially complete, but then others that are going to be like business planning. It's just going to be an ongoing thing until we get to the finish line. So these bullets here are the main components of it. So our pump test analysis, that is just the long pump test report, just getting distilled down and into the report. A delineation of the zone 2 groundwater monitoring well plan. So just how do we monitor the groundwater long-term? Wellhead protection, non-zoning and zoning controls. So protecting the zone 1, the area immediately around the well field, and making sure that the water doesn't get contaminated. So town has to have control of that. So the town is actively working on that.
We did one of those, right? Which one did we do?
The overlay district.
Overlay district.
The zoning overlay.
And so that's the start of this.
So that's zone 2 protection. Then there's a capacity plan. That's kind of going back to what I was saying, just making sure the town has the capacity as an entity to run the business side of things. An ENF, which is an environmental notification form permit, a groundwater withdrawal permit, and then the business plan as well.
As long as that goes for it.
Don't know the answer to that off the top of my head.
They get renewed every so many years by the state.
How many? 7 years?
I don't remember the exact year. I know what they do is, depending on what river basin you're going out of, they don't want to overtax the basin you're in. And then they renew it every so many years based on who's withdrawing what. They give you like a maximum withdrawal per day. And I know you can exceed that as long as they also give you a per year. And I know you're allowed to exceed the per day as long as you don't exceed the per year. And that lets people in the summer, once there's a lot more water. My knowledge of that gets kind of fuzzy. It's been a while since I really delved into it in that level.
Do we have to do anything with the federal government, or it's just state?
State. But the state testing requirements are almost stricter than the EPA.
Right, EPA plus.
Well, because the EPA keeps weakening it right now, so the state is not. But the other thing you need to know, the value of having town water is, most people in Mendon, when they buy a house, if it's, the bank says water quality and quantity, and they never look at it again. This stuff is tested over and over and over again. So like Mike is on the system, Mike gets the annual report that lists everything that's in it. The fact that we have never had a contamination issue in the water system, in the town wells we have, but in the water system we don't. But that's a big difference between going on a town or municipal water system than your own well, is the fact that it is repeatedly tested and the quality is always assured. Versus, I can't remember in 2 houses with wells over 20 years, I think they were tested twice.
It's up to the homeowner to have it tested.
Yeah.
Once you buy it. So it's not a bad idea to do it every year, but most people just don't.
So would we be getting into chlorination discussions at some point too? Are those standards? Do we have to do those things?
There's disinfection you need to meet.
Fluorine's a different case. That's a different whole argument.
But
That's why I'm asking, like, are we gonna have those discussions? Do we need to have those?
at some point, but certainly not now.
Yeah, but somewhere along down the line, that stuff's gonna come up. All right. Gotta guarantee you.
I just, look at it right now in my head, to tell you the truth, I look at that as an added cost.
Okay.
You know, I'm more looking at, A, is this thing gonna be viable in my lifetime?
Hmm.
And B, I'm interested, you know, as a current user and the complaints I hear every day from people on the system, I'm interested in delivering high quality but low cost. And if you tell me right now, you know, people want it, just add that in.
But I heard it's in the 2030s, right?
We can get to that. We have some thoughts. I mean, again, it will be funding mostly, so.
And again, it's still for the existing users and then commercial.
Right.
No plan to expand it to people who don't already have it through the Hopedale system, because there's really no need.
You know, I've actually done studies on what it costs for the people who are on the system, what they pay now versus what it would cost them to get off it and drill a new well. And it's still cheaper for the people on the system to stay on the system.
Right.
Given the price of drilling.
Those wells are so expensive.
Yeah, you know, when you buy a brand new house, that's wrapped into the cost of the house. When you go and decide to do it now, it's a big expense. And for people who had like really shallow wells and then had to put in a deep well, it's a sizable expense to people. But I don't know what was going on.
Right.
You know,
Well, we
Let
can,
the man finish.
let's move on.
Yeah, so that brings us to next steps. So yeah, key elements, coordination items are huge. So coordination with town on business planning. So having some workshops over the next month to talk through the financial model and what the town needs to do to push this forward from a business standpoint, and both short-term and long-term. And then stakeholder coordination. So making sure we're still talking in touch with Mass DEP and developers and whatnot there. And then additional funding opportunities, both short and long term, where our fiscal solutions team and the town are working closely to look into those potential opportunities, because that's been the gasoline for this whole thing, on top of all of your support and all the stakeholder support. And then continuing to review phasing of business planning and adoption. And then the next step on the engineering side would be moving into final design and pushing along that source final report. That's a marathon in itself. So that's our presentation for tonight. We really enjoyed being able to give you guys an update.
Yeah.
And all the feedback and conversation has been great. You guys
Yeah.
have any further questions?
How many phases are there?
Talk about that.
Depends on what the levels of funding are, right? I mean, it does seem like we've been at this a long time, but it started with maybe 150,000, and then I think another 150,000, and then it was 400,000, and then I think it just depends on what kind of chunks we can get to advance this. We worked with Dylan to submit a one-stop application for phase 5 today, that was due today, to the community growth, communities one stop for growth, which is the program that we've helped support grant applications for the past few years. And Housing Choice provided a grant or two. Rural Development's provided this last one. We got really good feedback from Rural Development for this next phase, for phase 5. So it really just depends on the level of funding, and you know, again, the town should be very proud that you haven't spent any of your own money. You've been spending earmark funds or grant funds, and we've gotten this far. So depending on the level of funding, we'll just keep pushing it. And then there'll be the discussion about, again, users and revenue and business planning and capital costs to overcome, and operations and maintenance costs, and all of those pieces. But the picture is becoming more and more clear every step we take. So
I'll talk a little bit about money in ways that they can't really. We also received $960,000, $960,000 from community project funding, federal earmark through Congressman Auchincloss's office that requires then a local match, a 20% local match. So I've been on webinars and trainings and the whole deal. We're going to apply through the federal funds infrastructure office set up at the state level to do, they have an office set up specifically for matching funds for federal grants. So we're going to apply for that. The window.
Matching the, our matching funds or state funds that.
It's just, the state has a fund because they talked about an MMA a few years ago that we could not afford as a state to give up any federal money. So if they did not want the federal money to stop because the local government didn't have the matching funds. So they've seeded state money for towns to use for those matching.
Something like $70 million or something seeded. And so we'd be looking for 200 and something thousand to, and even if we get half of that and we go to the free cash for, we spend 100,000 to access $1 million, and, math still makes sense for us. But so we're working on that. What I've learned through a couple of these trainings is if a consulting firm helps in your procurement, helps scope what you're trying to do, helps with your procurement documents, they are expressly forbidden from then participating in that procurement. So they're obviously aware we have money. We've talked about it. And they've helped in terms of putting together what our application would be. But we've got to do our procurement for this through the, on the federal level, kind of absent their involvement in the design.
But like when we get to whatever the phase number is that actually builds out that first purple line there, like 50 million? Like where's the range for that first build out? Like,
yeah, I mean,
That'll be in the report.
yeah, so
it'll be in the report.
We're still making sure it's viable and that we have a good source. And, a lot of this is academic, but it's the first steps.
certainly in the tens of millions, whether you do it in 7 years or 17 years makes a difference too.
Right.
But also it's important to know that number and when, because if that means current users' water rate to support the debt required to do this doubles, then the project doesn't work.
Right.
So we're not there yet.
Yeah, but also at some point, Jeremy, the rate Hopedale's charging us might get onerous enough to the point where this makes eminent sense for all the existing users.
Very true.
Basically what happens is they raise the fee every year and we just pass it along because we can't lose money.
We're takers, yeah.
So, I mean, we're held hostage basically. And, if they decide to raise the rates 25% this year, we have to go up 25%. We don't have a choice. I did want to point out one thing. We're blessed in that one of the members of the committee, the commission, is Vincent Roy, who is the superintendent of the Sudbury Valley Water District and runs a water system for a living. And his knowledge has been invaluable in meetings with these guys from Warden Curran, but just in our meetings. And, he knows cost, he knows everything about running a system.
Vince is great. He came on right when you guys came on board.
Yeah, and our newest member is who just got elected when, because of his wife's passing, Alan Kent chose not to run after many years. Our newest member who lives on Bay Street is a lawyer. And that certainly helps us analyze things quicker. I hate to say this out, quicker than going to town council sometimes. To get a fast read on, what we need to pay attention to.
So end of the month, we're gonna get a big report? Or that's just when your report is due and we'll see it sometime later.
You'll see it very soon this month. Yep.
Thank you very much for your
Thank you,
time.
John.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
any questions come up, feel free to ask Jeremy and Dylan, and we can certainly get you some answers.
Thanks for coming by. Thanks for persisting through all my chatter. Thank you, Dylan. Appreciate your time.
Don't go anywhere yet because we have another one here.
Yeah, for Dylan, yeah.
Just say, give a shout out to Dan Meyer, who is
Yes, Waterman.
the commission's interface every day. It keeps us honest. For whatever I think he's got, 5 to 10 hours in the budget, he always puts in 3 or 4 times that amount.
Yeah, he's been one of the team members, core team members, giving us a lot of information during this project.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Right. Moving on to the online licensing.
So Dylan's gonna drive this one.
Yep, I'll share my screen. I have a presentation, and please jump in with any questions. And at this point, if there are any questions I can't answer, it'd be great to still hear them so I can take them in and do some more research. But hope I can give you guys a good understanding of the e-permitting and e-licensing program. Do this. Can you see that okay?
Yep.
Great. I think I have an old date because I was going to be on a previous agenda, so just pretend that date is today. So we're talking today about OpenGov, previously known as Viewpoint. So if I interchange the names, or if you hear anyone else talk about Viewpoint instead of OpenGov, they're the same thing. We've been using it for a few years now in the building department. And we also have some other departments and commissions and things like that. We have a few applications from a few different groups there, not using it as frequently as building, but we do have some use outside of the building department. We've just entered a year-long contract to expand our use beyond what we already have, adding a few more modules on to evaluate if this program is going to be a good one for us to sort of go all in. That doesn't mean every department. It just means the departments that want to use this program, need to use this program. It's going to be nice and efficient to have a single portal for a lot of these items, simplify things for the applicant, the staff, and the public. So we have, a 24/7 portal instead of just paper or email. It's going to help us meet our digital accessibility goals, which I'm going to come back and talk to you about another day. That's about people with disabilities and how putting things online can be very useful for that. And the state does have some new laws in place, so we do have to make things digital fairly soon. It's going to reduce the workload on staff and reduce some human error when it comes to maybe you miss a phone call or an email and time goes by, even just a weekend happens and the timing of answering that phone call and they just had a question, whereas they can just go online and apply right away and then questions can be answered in a timely manner. You guys can reference the application information if you bring your own computers to the meeting. People can go online from home and look up different records if they want to see. You just have a whole online record of what's going on, so it's transparent. You don't have to call someone and ask, hey, what's this thing that's going to be on the agenda? I don't have any idea what it is, and it's in my backyard. They can look and see exactly what that application is for. It'll be all in one place.
I don't see the select board on here. Is that something that we would add at some point, or?
Yep. So right now, yeah, are you looking right now? It's it's private. It's all built out, but it's I can give every individual access right now just because it's in a testing phase. So right now I think like me and Kat and Jeremy have access to the actual forms that have been built. So I will give you guys access after tonight so you can take a look. But it is in a sandbox sort of environment. And I'll mention a little bit later, but we're planning to go live July 1st. So soon it'll be completely available to the public. So I mentioned a few of these, but like I said, Kat has been learning this. We're going to go over it a few times to make sure she's comfortable with what we're doing. But from previous executive assistants, there used to be paper forms and emails. Used to be an emailed routing slip that would go around. That was a PDF that you had to download and then type in on Acrobat and then reattach it to an email and then send it back to the executive assistant. And then each department would do that about a particular application. And then the executive assistant would maybe combine all those into one PDF. So this would just be you get an email notification, you go in, every department who needs to actually comment on a particular project can do so right there, all in one place. There's no middleman, there's no routing. It's just, it'll be a lot simpler and it'll be a central location. I hope that takes up a lot of, a lot of that time that is spent trying to process this application. Kat will have a lot more time to actually look into the details and do other things for you guys too. And so, as I said, we have like a 1 year window here where we're going to decide if it works for select board. I'll also mention Board of Health is the other module that we're going to be building out very shortly. And so we're going to add those two and maybe a little bit more if we can and see if this is working. Address any issues and talk to OpenGov if we need to and say, hey, this works for us, this doesn't. Make sure that we get a good product out of what we need to, what we want to utilize here. So for you, for select board, these are the license or permit types that I have implemented into the sandbox and soon into the live module. And then off to the side here, you'll also see two forms that have been discussed, but we don't have a concrete plan yet. But I just want to mention these for the future: the consent to use town property and road sign request form. But your everyday forms, auto dealers, common vics, entertainment, junk, liquor, parade, one-day liquor, and temporary trailer, those ones will all be online. People can access those forms, apply for them, pay online, and then our executive assistant can take a look at those, process them, set a meeting date, send out hearing notices, which will be auto-generated. So you don't have to type it into Word every time. It's going to be a form that fills in the data. Same with the actual license card. It'll just be a card, and then the actual information for each one will fill in automatically, much faster. This, I know, is a great way to actually assess how good this product is for us. And even beyond our assessments, this can help us grow in the future. There's a lot of ways to just audit for efficiency and work completion, discover some trends on what's going right and what's going wrong. So there's report building that's just built right into the program. When did someone start a draft? When did they actually press apply? How long from when they applied to when it was issued? Was that late by any chance? Is there a statutory deadline that wasn't met? Are we always at the end of the deadline, or are we really quick? Things like that. And then also what kinds of things people are applying for, how many of each thing each year. It'll be very easy to just pull that data. It's automatically captured just by the sense that we are doing all of this online, so it's all in the program. This is just a screen grab from the building side, just so you can see. Obviously, I don't have this many records on the other side to show you a report yet. So as I mentioned, I will give you all access to take a look, but by July 1st, things are going to go live. And so we'll have real applications in there with real people. Hope there's a whole slew of them on July 1st, but I mean, hopefully, depending on the season, you'll have more or less, so we can see how July 1st goes. And, when you get back into the winter months, you'll have more, I think, but we're going to open this up and Kat will be learning, and I'll be there to walk alongside her and make sure that things are looking good. Make any last minute changes or tweaks that need to be made. And then during that time as well, it's already been started, but we're going to design and implement the Board of Health module, doing the same things, filling in, making a bunch of forms for people to apply, making what the permit or license cards look like, deciding on the steps in the process. And then over this next year, we can decide, hey, how are we adopting this well? Is it usable in the way that we want to use it? Are we actually getting our money's worth? And then we can consider alternative solutions. There are other programs out there. Are any of them better for what we need, or is this one exactly what we need? And then looking at future modules, interested in getting a module for ZBA, Planning, Conservation Commission, and any other departments that want to jump on board, as long as the funding's there. We can see taking it step by step and building this program out as we see fit and as things make sense for the town. These are just a few slides that show some examples of what we're looking at, but obviously giving you access, or if you want to email me and just ask me, hey, can you show me what the form for entertainment looks like? I'd be happy to send anyone just a screen grab of that. But they're basic online forms, drop downs and check boxes and fill in fields, things like that.
Dylan, the people who are submitting these licenses are they able to like follow along on the process, like, or do they just see a status of active and then completed?
Yeah, they
Like,
get to follow along. Absolutely. Yeah. So they get to see the entire list of steps in the process. And once they apply, they'll see next step is to pay the fee. Next step after that is for the town to review the application to make sure it's complete and it has all of the necessary attachments and files. And then they'll see that the hearing will be, the date will be set and a hearing notice will be generated for the ones that need a hearing notice. If it doesn't need a hearing notice legally, there'll still be a notification that sends to the applicant to say, hey, this is the date that it's going to be. Make sure you're there, etc. They follow along with that process the whole time until they get to the actual license issuance. This is just a example of what the auto dealer license will look like. We have some questions on like signatures on the bottom, so obviously the text will look a little different than this, but just to give you an idea. It's actually one question I would want to ask everyone tonight is, do you want there to be a digital signature for everyone, or do you still want to hand sign all of the licenses? So you can discuss that just as soon as I finish this last slide. I think that's it. So any questions? And that's my question to you.
That has been an issue in the past. This
Yeah.
is like, where do we sign on these licenses? It just happened like a month ago or 2 weeks ago.
The ABCC one only had 4 blocks.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I like signing, but I don't know. I don't know if it really matters. We've already approved it by the time.
I think the point is that we don't sign it until we've actually taken a vote to approve it.
Right.
So it's just a.
But would we sign it wet here, or would Dylan print a digital watermark of our signatures?
Right.
I think that's the whole idea, is that once we voted to authorize it, then she's authorized to use our digital signatures.
It is easier. I'll tell you that. It will be easier if you are comfortable with the digital signature after your vote, obviously.
I can tell you from the last time I was the chair, having to sign warrants and things was much easier.
You gave most of it.
Well, yeah, now, but that's.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
So I'm all for the digital signature.
As long as you get every letter.
If I'll let everyone else, decide if that's what you all want, but if so, would you want just the signatures of the people who voted yes, or would you want all signatures at all times?
It was legal. I would tend to think the people who voted,
Okay.
There.
if somebody's not there, then.
Okay. That just helps me decide how to implement it, and that's exactly how we're going to do it in Board of Health as well.
That kind of stuff is stuff I was thinking about, like if it were tied to an agenda item, right? Then you could, mark that agenda item as voted approved, and it would automatically tick the box over in OpenGov and apply the signature. Maybe Kat's marking down who voted yay or nay.
Yep.
And that information is in place and nobody has to do anything. That would be
Yep.
nice. I don't.
Yeah, I don't know how to switch it from your program that does the agendas into this, but Kat will have a feature that just says voted to approve or disapprove, and then we'll just select check boxes of who's voting and who's voting yes. So it'll just from a few clicks, it'll generate the whole thing, and if she wants, she can do it right in the meeting or right after, right the next morning, and then it's available for either printout or pickup or however you want to give the applicant that actual license card.
Dylan, can we design what the licensings are gonna look like? So
Yep.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I changed what they're gonna look like moving forward, and I just wanna be able to put that
Perfect.
into a lot cleaner
Super
and
easy,
nicer.
no problem. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, this all looks fantastic. It's great to streamline it because it's like thinking about how
100%.
clunky it was. Like it's so much room for human error and like on,
Just walking out,
Every direction.
walking out of the room without forgetting to sign.
yeah,
Then
but
having to
it,
come back, just come in the weekend and sign it. Box and go
even
find
like
it.
whether like all of the boxes had been filled out properly on some of the entertainment licenses, and I guess.
Oh,
guess
you know,
one question
actually,
is,
yeah.
like, how, like, I know that you showed a preview of like an entertainment license. I guess how easy is it to update what some of the questions? Because I've had questions sometimes about the entertainment licenses, like we ask some of those things, like where, like the.
It would be nice to
Dancing
validate
by
that they need it.
patrons, for example.
And dancing by people on Sundays being.
Right, so I mean, like how easy is it for us to update the content of the licenses?
So I can change the content of the application at any time, obviously, not for one particular one, but we can always update things if you decide, hey, we need to ask a few more questions of our applicants. We can add that anytime. I'll also mention that from the original forms that you were using, for the ones you were using like a form for, there have been a few updates, clarifications, and the biggest thing is there weren't a lot of changes, but I asked all the departments that normally sign off or do this routing slip process. I asked them, hey, are there any important questions for these permit types, these license types, that you don't get an answer to just by reading the application? And what do you need us to ask in that application? So when they go to sign off on that routing slip, they have all the information they need to. So get all the information up front for everybody, and then it's there, and we can always add to that and edit the applications if we start realizing that there are things that you want to ask that aren't asked, or if you want to clarify certain things.
So I will say the license for public entertainment on a Sunday is a state form.
Okay, yeah, I want.
You got no,
No leeway in that.
yeah. So we can collect all,
Mhm. Sorry, Jeremy, go ahead.
we can collect all the data.
Yeah.
You change what we want to collect.
So
We can
can't
change the application form for that one, just not the permit card at the end.
My God, if you have a question, sir.
No, that's more of a statement and I think Dylan covered it, but I mean, I think the approach taken here was rapid development. So it's very flexible, but the idea is not to sacrifice the good for the perfect, partly because a year ago, this actually started when the select board goals around trying to get operational measurements in place. And when we dug into the operations, there was talk about looking for new permitting software. At which point we realized, well, we actually haven't kicked the tires on the one we have, which is why we took that extension of a year and a half. So the idea, and Dylan ran with it, said implement fast, as long as we don't design ourselves into a corner. So it's very flexible. And I would fully expect, Dylan, that you're gonna get feedback like, hey, can you tweak this? Once we go live, just get it out there quickly, so we can use it and understand impact internally and externally and modify as we go.
I think I should probably also mention that my previous life before being a town planner was as a project and program manager for a software company that made e-permitting. So this is my background besides planning. So I hope that my expertise in that area can be useful now in Mendon.
I was going to make 3 points, one of which was why do we do it here? Another which was that's Dylan's background. So the third thing, the only other thing I'd say is I was recently at an emergency management thing with Chief Kersey and John Dudley, and we were talking about this continuity of operations, and it was like, where does, if town hall becomes inoperable, where do people go? Where do people work? And most of us can work from home. but where does the public transact their business? Do, you know, people who come in and do stuff face to face? And the more of this kind of stuff we can move online, you know, one day is not going to make a big difference. But if this building's out of commission for 6 weeks for, you know, whatever disaster, how does the public continue to interact? Yeah, and the easiest way would be, you know, they can do it from their kitchen table to, you know, my kitchen table.
And I also want to mention off of that there are some people that that don't have access to the way we do things now. They can't read paper forms because they don't have the vision to do that. They have screen readers. Having things online is going to help us reach all of our people. You can still have paper forms for those who have difficulties with computers, but putting things online is going to help more populations be able to access government.
Awesome stuff.
The only comment I wanted to say is, having been through the building permit process a few times, I find it super helpful to follow along as the process goes through the rounds. On it really intuitive and use from the other side.
I get it. All right. Anybody else? All right, well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Dylan. It sounds like we're lucky to have you here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Jason.
Good night. Good night.
Night.
Let's move up to number 7. We're all familiar, there's an energy aggregate agreement, and this is the conversation is to have the town administrator as the signee on behalf of the board, which you talk about.
Certainly. So this started right before I started. So the Community Choice Power Supply Program went into effect with the first meter reads in September of 2024. We had a 2-year rate guarantee at that point. So the team is now looking back in the market and what do we want to do in advance of that expiring in September. Energy markets are nuts.
Is that a technical term?
Our consultant used a far more colorful one.
Yeah, I'm sure we did.
So he had asked me to do, if I had authorization to sign this, and if I didn't, to go and seek authorization, because oftentimes when they get pricing that's locked in and on their model that is more beneficial than either they expect to get or expected to get at that point, the turnaround sometimes like 12 hours to sign something.
Time is of the essence.
So waiting for a board meeting just didn't make sense.
Right.
Exactly. So we're not at the point of procuring something yet, and we're, you know, hopeful, you know, we'll see a little bit more stability going forward. But it's not necessarily true that we will sign a 2-year guarantee again. So depending, you know, a 18-month might be better. You do get 2 winters in that, so it ends up being a little bit higher generally than a 12-month would be. But there's a logic and a rationale on all this that I'm not in the industry, and I defer to a couple of our consultants on. But I just want to be, you know, it's not necessarily going to be a 2-year extension of this.
When's it up? Did you say September?
September. So I think we can start pricing 90 days in advance. So we're in there.
So I'd be looking for a motion to authorize the town administrator to sign all related documents associated with the energy aggregation program.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any other discussion or questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's move on to number 10. The IT contract, approve World Beyond's IT contract and grant town administrator authority to sign.
Yeah, so I'll just say the authority to sign is because it's the vote would be like pending stuff. So I didn't, if we had the contract, I'll just give it to you to sign right now. Or we can wait for the meeting. So I don't really care if I sign this or not. But I want to go through the procurement piece of this. So their contract's up June 30th. I went out and I procured on state contracts. So sent to 5 vendors, 2 of which I didn't know. I just picked a vendor off it. But the 3 I was familiar with. Got numbers back all over the map. There was the low bidder, I think, had too much variability in their proposal. And I know they were an hour away. And I know folks were appreciative of the fact that World Bank could be here in person and figure out their issue in 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is. So for what was, I don't want to say fractional, but indeterminate, but I think marginal difference in price, and I don't know if it was going to be one way or the other, I thought World Band's continuity of service and ability to provide quick service was worth it. Like I said, I have a number of questions on their contract, including, some technical stuff, and I need council review. The stuff that I knew how to do, I wanted to cross off first with World Bank before sending it to council, rather than have council take the, low hanging fruit questions. And then, like I said in my memo, a question on the signatory ability on World Band side. One thing, did I write it in here? One thing in here. So the state contract, I couldn't figure out whether I wanted to use ITC 73 or ITS 75 to do this, because neither of them seem to be totally the right scope. And then, so I emailed a few people at OSD, the Operation Services Division, which does the statewide joint procurements. They happened to be on leave and got back to me like after I'd already sent this out. But they're like, "You're right. There's not a great third-party managed IT contract. Like, what would be useful to you? Are you interested in talking?" So I opened my mouth. I opened my mouth, and now I'm on a committee. I think it's very interesting.
That'll teach you.
I think it's very informal, but yeah, hopefully they'll be developing. So hopefully by the next time we're out of contract, next contract cycle will be a more tailored state contract for this. And I bring up the things about, not necessarily the apparent low quote, because it's not a bid, it's just solicitation of quotes, is that accounting will ask for all my procurement documentation and I send it over. This contract, ITS 75, you don't have to go with the lowest. You don't have to solicit quotes. You can just pick somebody from the contract, and that's part of the beauty of it. But I thought it was important to at least level set our expectations in the market, right? Because if we were with the vendor that was 350 and we didn't go out, we would be paying for a lot of stuff we didn't need. So it is essentially a level service contract from what we currently have. Folks do this all the time. I took our current, what we are currently invoiced for in World Band, kind of anonymized their stuff and use that to build the scope into a document to send out. There is no COLA in this contract, so the costs, no escalation. So World Band's invoicing to us in years 2 and 3 is the same as it is in year 1. Should we execute all 3 years of the contract? One question I have that I thought about after I put my memo together in here is part of the cost here, 35,000 of the 152 is Office 365 licenses, and their statement of work specifies a dollar value for Office 365 licenses 2 years from now. I don't think it's their intent to eat any increases that Microsoft may have. I think their intent would be,
will.
But by the proposal they submitted, they will.
Yeah, that definitely goes up. Though it will be a curious conversation with them because there's a couple of different ways for them as a vendor to procure that licensing.
Okay.
So if they're pooling it in shared tenants and then selling out the shared tenant model, then it might be the same rate. But if they're passing through as a third-party vendor and uplifting, then it will not. So, yeah. But I do remember that they did, at the last contract, they ate an increase.
Yeah, for their secure IT product, they
Right.
ate increases over the 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, costs right now are just escalating, doubling. Essentially, in our space, some stuff from last year is double. So,
Doubling.
yeah, double. Hardware coming in at 100% the cost it was last year. So, yeah, the sooner we lock in these rates, the better for everybody. Because the hardware affects the software usually in a 1 or 2 year lag. Look for it.
Any other questions?
Either hand raise on.
Go ahead, Carl.
Does this contract cover the Mendon MA town website?
That's done through Civic Clerk.
Any other question? All right, then I would be looking for a motion.
I move to approve the we approve it, we're granting you,
Altogether, both.
yeah. But we're not approving the contract yet, right? Or,
Right. Yeah, I wrote this, so yeah, you're right. I moved to grant the town administrator authority to sign the contract.
Okay, so I move to grant the town administrator authority to, I guess, complete the contract and sign the contract with Brand IT.
Yeah, so at this point, granting me the authority to do so means the stuff that I
Just
put
talk
questions in about and all those things, like I want those addressed before. So giving me the authority to sign it says that once I am satisfied that those are addressed in council reviews, you can even make the motion to say, including council review.
Okay,
then
so I'm gonna amend that motion to grant the town administrator authority to sign the town contract pending town council review.
That works. Yep.
All of it, yeah.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Town administrators report.
All right. So a couple of things. We expect the bylaws back from the Attorney General's office at some point in August. And speaking of look forward, so I'd like to have you think about your availability for a goal setting meeting for fiscal 27. I think the first part of that would be a fiscal 26 goal review, which was one of our fiscal 26 goals. So looking at the calendar in July, we have a 5 Wednesday month. July 1st being Wednesday is the only way, or not the only way, but July 1st is Wednesday. So right now, the typical meeting schedule would be July 1st and July 15th. I am out on leave starting July 20th. I can attend a goal setting session. I'm just not going to be here every day. So you don't need an answer now, but think about your availability for a goal setting session.
You're suggesting that we meet on that 5th Wednesday?
Yeah, the 4th or 5th Wednesday in July. I mentioned a little bit earlier, I went to an emergency management tabletop exercise in Northbridge, talking about the continuity of operations. So we've got a continuity of operations plan, needs to be updated, some definitions and things where it's a great structure of a plan in the sense the alternative sites manager, reassigns people to new alternative sites. And then it doesn't say who the manager is or what those sites are. So like fleshing out the details of our plan rather than just the framework of how we approach stuff is important. So that'll come to the board, be part of the emergency management update in some capacity. But it was a great tabletop exercise to get me thinking in a lens that I didn't necessarily. But I think we've got a lot of good stuff in place already, including the ability to issue paper checks. That was a big thing that people were like, oh my gosh, what if payroll doesn't happen and we can't do direct deposit or whatever. We can put paper checks here and have them, and which is, I don't want to say rare, but at least uncommon in municipalities in our region at least. Still on the regional dispatch merger discussions, we're a little bit closer. I've worked with the new town administrator in Mansfield to come up with the addendum to the agreement on essentially what the cost to MEC will be for shared executive director services from the current SEMREC director. So we've got a joint meeting week after next, I think, to hopefully finalize that. Jen Talamini, our outreach coordinator for the Council on Aging, has resigned effective tomorrow. She gave her 2 weeks, but effective tomorrow. So we've posted that position. I want to thank Jen for her service to the town. In addition, we've had a firefighter resign for personal reasons, kind of stepping back from workforce and firefighting and do our department. But he's effective again in like 2 weeks. I should have pulled it up here. Tim Morse is the firefighter. And then from Chief Bangma just today. So when we went out for an open position in May of 2025, we had one open position. We received 5 applications and 3 of them ended up being viable candidate applications. As of today, in the 2 weeks that we've posted the 2 and then 3 positions, we've received 39 applications. 8 of them are internal. So we have 8 folks who are on-call firefighters who now want to join the department in ways that a year ago our on-call guys didn't even want to join the department. So says a lot about the chief, says a lot about, I think, moving to 42-hour work weeks.
Right.
Says a lot about the capital investments that the town's made in the fire department. So yeah, it's things are looking up.
Yeah, the investment in adding positions, I think.
Yeah. That was
Helps more.
That's what they've said the whole time. So looks like They had their finger on the pulse of the fire department. We also have an opening in the building administrative assistant role, but we're looking to perhaps change that a little bit. It would seem to be over scoped or too many hours for the work that I had. So I guess under scoped. So working with union reps and HR and the constituent folks to how do we right size that? So right now, Kat, Rory, and some other folks are providing administrative coverage for planning board, ZBA, building on a day-to-day basis. Finance committee meets on the 11th to vote on financial transfers. So we've got two types of transfers. One is from the FinCom reserve fund, which only requires a FinCom vote. And the other is line item transfers, which requires a FinCom vote and a select board vote. So I've been compiling some line item transfers. So this is things like we've had a huge surplus in the Norfolk Aggie line because not as many kids went, but we need more money in our telephone internet line or something like that. Versus the reserve fund where I'm moving it to, it was a collective bargaining year, so we had legal expenses that outpaces what we need. It's, same money, but it's just two processes. So at the 6/17 meeting, there'll be a vote on the transfers. I just want to let you know we're on top of that. That'll happen. Capital planning, I met with them last week. We have a cadence to by the end of June have kind of an approach together on our next meetings, but on what we need from department heads, and then have a August to September evaluative process by them and be ready for special town meeting to appropriate free cash at special town meeting. Well in advance of getting free cash certified, right? Because they can prioritize and say, this is what we want to do, agnostic of what our funding sources are. Town hall, we're at the tail end of bargaining with the town hall bargaining unit, to the point where their union president and I have just taken it totally to email where we don't need another session. We're close enough. We'll just go back and forth. I had a secondary note here. So on the emergency management tabletop, there's also FEMA MEMA training called ICS, Incident Command System. And there's something called ICS 402, which is for senior executives and elected officials. So we're going to be hosting, no details unless Chief Kersey has some on when, but we're going to be hosting, it's a 4-hour session. We'll be hosting it in person here in town. MEMA is going to come in and teach it. So we're going to open it up to department heads, all of you. So once we have any sort of clarity on that, but it's what's the roles and responsibilities of department heads, senior officials, elected officials in the incident command structure during an emergency. So we hear the fire.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was him, but Chief Bangma can change the siren on his quite easily. So maybe he's testing one out. Chief Kersey's got to handle it.
Go ahead, Chief. Yeah, Jeremy, so since we spoke, Mark and I had talked to MEMA. The management level one we're going to do when you get back from your leave, so we'll plan that in September-ish time. And then we also have the highway one, if you want to mention that too. We have a entry level for regular town employees and highway workers to kind of introduce them to emergency management and the system. So that's like a 4-hour class, and we're going to get that done over the summer.
I've taken a number of those classes. It's really useful just to.
I have too. It's great.
Make sure you stay out of everyone else's way is what I.
Good to know what your role is and your expectations, what you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do.
Just a reminder, we've got a meeting tomorrow solely on facilities use. So joint with Council on Aging, Taft Library trustees, capital planning has also posted the meeting, and I sent a note to FinCom as well. I don't believe they posted a meeting, but just want to make them aware of it. I've got a presentation to kind of run us through and set the table, set the tone, but I imagine there's going to be a lot of discussion off of that. But really, Council on Aging wants a new facility. One of the explored options includes the library. The library also has an explored option on how to expand their space, and they need to have future space needs. And these conversations from a funding and operation perspective are intertwined, and we should just have everybody together.
Are we voting on anything or just listening?
Likely not. At least come up with some sort of as agreeable as possible plan forward.
Trying to build a consensus of what direction.
I've said it a bit flippantly, but I'm serious. And also part of this meeting is I don't want to just have to go back and forth between the three boards 100 times.
Right,
without having
right.
everybody together.
We talked about it, just made a lot of sense to just.
Yeah.
Get all the stakeholders in place all at once and everybody together on the same page at the same time.
And then, so this I got yesterday afternoon, otherwise I would have made it an agenda item. But the board's aware we didn't get our Mass DOT Small Bridge Repair grant, Small Bridge Repair Program grant. We have also not received feedback as of yesterday afternoon about why. Our overwhelming understanding is because Chapter 85 review wasn't done yet. They've opened up a new grant window. Opens up June 8th, but it runs through August 7th, so there won't be a grant determination until the end of August. Our consultant said regarding bidding, we do need DOT final approval before we go out to bid. So we can't even if we want to go out to bid right now, but we're compiling all of the bid package right now on scope that we know and on all the front end documents that we need to put together, as they're called. So given the anticipated timelines, our consultant advises bidding this summer, fall, to allow construction next summer. And that will allow for, that will allow for all the submittals and material procurement to be handled well in advance of the site work, as well as lining up with the DOT grant round. We have a time of year restriction for in-water work, so we can't work in water until after May 31st. But that's not a even plurality of the work that we're doing. So talk about a 3 to 4 month project. If we bid it in this construction season in anticipation of next construction season, we're able to do a lot of that back end work without touching the road and having a closure. So that's included in the 3 to 4 month timeline.
Is there space down behind highway to stage a lot of this stuff?
So we had the discussion with Ludlow about a laydown area for Route 16. And so
Right.
if they don't use it, then yes. I think it's too small for them, if I recall. If I understood John Dudley's conversation with them, that it doesn't work for them. So this would be a much smaller laydown area. So yeah, yes, I think so.
My thought is
might work.
if we get particularly that concrete, actually culvert itself, it's going to be,
Mhm.
basically precast. If we can procure that and store that someplace, because in the back of my mind, if we bid it this construction season for next construction season, and then we have another flood in the wintertime, one of the issues we had at the time was a lot of the requirements, and a lot of the environmental review and everything else. When it's an emergency repair, you don't have to go through all of that.
Yeah, at this point, we've done a lot of that anyway.
Right. No, we have. But
So I guess the ultimate question would be, we have a $2,050,000 bond authorization from town meeting. Like we could, once we get the stamp, we can go out and procure it. I have the budgetary authority to go and procure this. I don't want to do that absent a $1 million grant window and not knowing that for certain. So if it was a $200,000 grant window, I might say, hey, let's, take our chances. I think we're a good candidate. We'll get it on the back end and we'll supplant some of our bond authorization. With $1 million, I don't want to do that. My opinion would be to line it up with the next round of funding, get our grant funding in the fall, be able to procure at that point, but with the construction in the spring.
That timeline is more certain as well.
right.
Be certainly helpful to know what we could do to make sure, whatever mistakes we made that first time, we don't do it again.
Well,
Yeah.
It's just timing.
So you mean in the grant, just
In the grant approval
yeah,
process.
we were told kind of all along about that we had a strong application and we got the maximum award at the design level, which bodes well for not necessarily maximum, but near maximum on the construction side. And so I think it's because Chapter 85 wasn't Chapter 85 review, which if you remember the two sentences, it's Mass DOT making sure anyone working on roadways does it to a standard that's safe for everybody. The hydrology part of that was not yet done.
No, but it's It's their.
Their own review. I know. But yeah, we are actively looking for feedback and have yet to receive it.
Fingers crossed.
We've got Carl on.
Go ahead, Carl.
If the construction is delayed a year, how likely is it that there'll be a need to go back to town meeting and ask for additional bond funding?
Very little, in that we have $2,050,000 as a projected construction cost right now. And that's what the bond authorization is for. So if we get the $1 million in the grant and we have the $544,000 from capital stabilization, that's, $3.55 million worth of budgetary authority. So if it better not cost that much.
And it's not gonna expire. There's not like a time frame.
Correct.
So
If the grant wasn't in play and the capital stabilization wasn't in play, then yes, that absolutely would be true. But I guess if that was the case, I would have built a larger contingency into the initial authorization because I hate asking for the same thing twice. So then they don't trust you as much the second time. That's all I have.
Thank you. So future agenda items that have been on here for a while, paddock property status, emergency management update, cemetery plans, and library and senior center facility plans, which I'm sure we'll talk about some of that.
Yep, and emergency management, that's coming on the 17th. And one other thing on the 17th that didn't make it to here, but we'll have an executive session for contracts. And almost assuredly, we'll have an executive session for to sign the police, what to discuss, and then fully sign the police MOA. So we've had a little bit of back and forth on language. We've had tentative agreements for ages. But it's important to me to get that signed 6/17, so we can have their new rates going with ours 7/1.
So our next scheduled meetings are, again, tomorrow's June 4th, and then the 17th, July 1st, as we just talked about, we're probably going to have 3 meetings in July, one of them being the goal setting. So with that, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn. All right. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everyone.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.